Would you like to support Cubs Out Loud? One way is to join us over on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, patrons get early access to our shows, the pre- and post-show, and various other rewards. You can learn more at patreon.com/CubsOutLoud. Thanks to all our patrons for their support in making this podcast.
In this episode of Cubs Out Loud, the guys take some time to look through their taste in men and ask the question, has it changed? From their first man crushes to their current refined desires, listen in as the guys unpack the objects of their affections from past to present. Learn if their taste aged like a fine wine as COL743 starts now.
It's Sunday, June 23rd, 2024. I'm Jeff.
Who's your bear? That's right. I am your bear.
I'm Damon.
I don't brew the tea, I just serve it.
And that makes me Gary.
Everyone else is thinking it, and I just say it.
And welcome to Comes Out Loud, the Bear Podcast with an interim length episode number 743. And yes, I'm fresh meat. Why don't you try to come enjoy me? Please.
Well.
I'm not that picky anymore.
Anymore.
Wow.
Perhaps we'll talk about that.
Gary, what are we talking about?
So this topic came about, pun intended, because of social media and the accessibility to adult content. It got me thinking about
sorry.
the availability today of information and like imagery, all that stuff compared to when we were younger. So it got me wondering if our taste in men has changed or is the same or slightly changed, slightly modified from when we were younger. Because in rough estimate, we as co-hosts came about for determining what we liked, what we were drawn to, what we were interested in the 80s, possibly the 90s. I'm presuming some formation of that came about in the 80s with, puberty and self-identification and that kind of stuff. So, now fast forward to where we are. It's a couple decades later, and it made me wonder if the type of men, that in essence, we did not know this term back then, distracted us, still do today, or if that's changed. And is that something that we would chalk up to the passage of time? Like, as we've gotten older, have our tastes changed with the time, with the world, with culture, or is it still certain things that bring that out of you? And actually, I want to give some recognition to over on Blue Sky. Yes, I'm over on there. As a social media site. There is a profile that I've been following called the Bear Magazine Preservation Project.
Yes. Followed him too.
It's at bearmagazine.bsky.social. And what they do is this one person who lives over on the West Coast has been high quality scanning all of the Bear Magazine print copies and posting their images online as like kind of an archive. And so it's interesting to see all these images from back then. And this was like the one piece of media that put an image, made a template, so to speak, for the community. And I'm proud of the fact that seeing this project go, that there were lots of different body types shown. I will say the one thing that wasn't really promoted in it was bigger boys. I think that was a product of the time in the 80s and 90s, because I don't think there was any really media that showed anybody like of the thickums and above.
I think that was
So
more on the their spin-off magazine Grizzly.
right, like I think that was kind of where that ended up falling in. But so it got me thinking about like, because some of these images, like I remember these photos. I mean, I have a whole collection of the magazine, and so it just made me wonder, like, do we still find these images alluring? If you saw that same person today in today's like parlance, like timey-wimey, as in they haven't aged, but like if you were to see that same individual today, would it still turn your head and or like yank your crank or whatever? So I don't know. Like, I mean, I feel like my taste has changed, but I don't know if that's 100% certain, because then I see individuals that were like, that would have caught my eye when I was half my age or younger. And that's a thing. So I'm like, well, maybe not.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, David, I honestly thought a little bit about you when I was posing this as like putting together this topic, because for the legacy of this podcast, we have poked fun at the fact that you like daddies, and like you married one. I mean, you married a Santa Claus, for God's sake. So,
I mean, fact.
I mean, don't be jealous, Jeff. So, I mean, the thing is that like it made me wonder if, like, because I don't know this, I guess, about you, if like when you were like developing your sense of self and what you like were drawn to, if like that imagery, that stuff kind of got planted that young, or if that kind of developed along the way that you discovered, like once you kind of self-identified and figured things out and was like, oh, like it don't have to be with like people my age. It can be with individuals that are older. In fact, it could be with people who really like bring something out of me.
Right. So, long story short-ish, I think I've always been attracted to older guys.
Mm-hmm.
For as long as I can remember. Like I'm trying to go back to, that blossoming of me and finding out myself. And um although weirdly enough, my first experiences with someone he's technically young. He was technically younger than me, but um I think I've often been attracted to maturity and older men, and that has kind of always been set. The range has always, I think, has changed as I have gotten older. I will kind of admit to that. Like I used to have a major cutoff at like 50, 55, 60. Like that was sort of the end.
Mm-hmm.
And any, like, not necessarily physically, that this was like if you had a profile on like the gay.com or whatever, and you mentioned you were or older than like 50 or 55, I was kind of like, I'm probably not going to be as interested. And that's me, and I will admit that ageism at the time. But I do know it has almost always been hairier men. I think that has always been the case. Even when I didn't know that was a thing, it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the So a quick side story, because actually some pictures just reminded me of it. Back when I was in high school, I went to this program called Governor Scholars, and it was, I think, 4 or 5 weeks away from home. I was actually close to here. I was at NKU, Northern Kentucky University. I was on their campus, and it was a way for us, nerds or geeks or whatever you want to call it, to experience college life and go to classes and do all of those things. And we learned a lot. But one of the main things I got access to was internet. While we had some internet at home, we um, didn't have a great computer at the time. So, uh, and we didn't have a printer. So I remember specifically, like the Bear like Preservation Project. One of those, there was an image. I'm thinking it's Jack Ratcliffe. I'm pretty sure it was Jack Ratcliffe. But there were images I remember specifically, like grabbing from like sites or whatever and printing them really quickly, and then grabbing them off the printer and tucking them away, because it was my only real opportunity at the time to see um, men that I found attractive. And um, yeah, yeah. Uh, so I think I used to say it was maturity. Like it was always been, I preferred a mature person. I preferred a mature guy, because those were the guys that tended to be more interested in me. Not that there wasn't interest in guys my age, but for the most part, it was um, those older gentlemen that I would find online that would talk to me and value um, my maturity. And that's who I usually would hook up with, is usually guys older than me. But when you're in college, especially, like you and you're free and you're not at home anymore, um, when those shackles are placed off, you kind of take what you can get sometimes, and sometimes that can be the guy next door, in a dorm next door or whatever.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff, what about you? Do you think that your tastes have changed, or has it been pretty consistent? Or
Yes and no. And
okay,
I have my reasonings. I think the men that I found was attracted to, like my the types of men that I find attractive, has basically grown. So, like, I started off like my experiences. Hey, my dad worked at IBM, so we always had a computer, and then internet came around, and we got access to Prodigy, and then things upgraded to full on internet to where I could go to news groups and look at erotic profiles. Our computer was downstairs in our family rooms. We had a living room
Lucky.
upstairs and family room downstairs.
Lucky.
Mhm.
You had a
So
warning system.
yeah, except for the fact that my brother's bedroom was like right in an eye shot. So
Mm.
if he ever opened the door, he could have caught me. Um, but so I think it was like kind of just exploring. Like I knew for certain I was not into the typical gay, ye old twinks, and so like I was browsing news group and I got the erotica men, and then I found bears. I'm like, ooh, and then I'm like, I don't really like those muscle bears. I don't like those six packs. I'd rather have a keg. And that's when I learned I like chubby men, like men with a
Mm-hmm.
belly.
Mm-hmm.
And I can define like the things that like I find very attractive about some people. A couple of things that I did learn was I do not like long hair at all.
Okay.
I do not find it an attractive anyway. They could be beautiful every other way, and
And I would be able to recognize that and maybe find them attractive if they have like their hair tied up in a bun or something like that, or in a ponytail and everything's pulled back. So from the front, it looks all short. And I'm like, ooh, that's hot. And then they turn their head and I see the longer hair and I'm like, ooh. Um, but I did learn that I have a thing for about hair. That's the thing I always, and I'm pretty sure I've always had that. But
Yeah.
as I've grown older, I've broadened my spectrum of what I find attractive. Like they don't necessarily have to have a big old belly. Um, they can be a little bit slimmer, but still with a little bit of padding, right? Um, and although even that ends up being like that's thing that I make somebody more attractive, but I can still find people that are attractive with more of that muscular look to it. But
Hmm.
they have other factors that are enjoying, like a beautiful beard, a bald head, but they may be little more chiseled. Um, and it just the range that it has, like even like within the past like 5 6 years, maybe like thinking about a trans man, and I think I even expressed it at one time on the show. I was like, "Ew, that's gross. I don't want anything to do with the pussy." And nowadays, I'm like, "Look, if they have other factors, I don't really care."
Mm.
I do find a lot of trans men attractive, and sometimes I'm looking for porn. I'm looking. I sometimes even try to search out something. The only problem is that most uh, trans porn that I can find are not the type of men that I enjoy. So
Hmm.
it's difficult.
Yeah.
We need more chubby bear trans men porn.
Fair.
Yeah. I was
But
thinking.
yeah, it's just this spectrum of what I had has I started off relatively narrow, and now I've just expand what I find attractive and who I'd want to play with or even have a relationship with. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's sort of maybe a given. I don't know about you, Gary, but I kind of agree with that. Like over the years, that expansion has happened in some ways, mostly due to, I think, experiencing not just say like images and porn, what have you, but just like actually experiencing um, other individuals and engaging with people and actually in a way getting to know people more. Um, and sounds weird, but like just giving somebody a chance that has expressed interest and seeing if maybe you would enjoy it, and then you find out you do, and you go, okay, well, that's cool. Let's give the next person a chance. Let's give the other person, the next one or the next person, and then um, also just for me, it's been eye opening, engaging with other cultures, as it were, and seeing other people and um, experiencing beyond the sexual other ways to be attracted to someone.
Hmm.
So that I think has also expanded my horizons, as it were. Um, like I was thinking, I was attracted to bears before I knew what bears were. Like, because I didn't really find out about the bear community until I moved here. In a sense, I think it was always something that I found myself interested in and attracted to, but didn't have a word for it until I moved here.
yeah, and I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure I
Great.
learned earlier than you did because I had better access to the internet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, um, well, maybe no. I'm trying to think. I was trying to think about college. I'm trying to think about did I ever get into bear? Were there bear groups? And I don't think so. Or bear like chat rooms or what have you. And I don't think I ever got into those.
Hmm.
I just remember the male for male ones. Those are the main ones that are popping in my head, but not a specific bear or heavy men or chubby men type groups.
Right.
By the way, I just noticed something. I had to look it up because I was curious. But do you know the site Bigger City?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, I just looked at how long ago I had joined, and it was
Yes.
25 years ago.
Hmm.
I'm like,
Well,
oh wow.
so you
Well,
joined in '99.
just think if you'd had a
I was
baby
in
back
college at
then.
that time, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 18 years old. If this is accurate enough, I was 18 years old. Was in college, so I definitely joined from my college dorm room.
I can't. I had an account. I just don't even know if I still have access to it. It's been so long.
I don't. How do you know? Oh, never mind. I found it. I was going to be like, how long ago did I join? Because it wasn't that long ago. I know that.
Okay.
Mine is a dozen years.
Hmm,
Hmm.
12.
I was a latecomer to it. Like I didn't. My concern about joining Bigger City was I didn't want to
Oh,
join the site and find myself like being the object of a lot of guys that I wasn't interested in.
mm,
Like my concern was that I was going to have a lot of guys be interested in me and I wasn't going to be interested in them. So I didn't go on the site for many, many, many years. And then finally ended up joining it. I think to like check it out as a platform and just kind of see how they operated and what things were on there, and inappropriately curious to see who else locally might have a profile.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
mm. Yeah. I just checked and I don't think my profile's there anymore because I must have deleted it at some point. Um, but I know I joined. Actually, one of the reasons I joined Bigger City was um, that was one of the changes for me was embracing um, the fact that I was a bigger guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so uh, and like I needed to. I knew that people would find me attractive, and I had a potential of finding someone else attractive that might normally not. I would not have been interested in before. Um, so I joined because, and I think I left because I can't remember why I deleted my profile. I think it was because I wasn't engaging with it anymore. Like that was usually what it is. Like I wasn't getting on there at all or as much anymore. So I just decided to delete it. Like when I went on to, I used to use Firefox. So I have saved in my um, you know passwords. I have a profile name and password. It doesn't work. So I'm assuming my profile has been deleted. But if you two are in there, I'll just check.
I just recently logged back into it. Well, no, I've had it a couple times where I've logged back into it. Also, for the fact that you can use your biggest shade login on bulkmail.com.
Hmm.
Although bulkmail needs an update.
Yeah. So I just sent into our host chat. I just sent my old profile name. I don't know if you'll find it, but if it's deleted, then that'll. If you can't find it, then that means definitely that it was deleted, which I'm kind of happy for because I can't get back into it.
If I recall, yeah, you don't exist.
Good.
At least under that name. If I recall, within the past, I want to say 5 to 6 years, they did an overhaul.
Mm.
There was something that I remember them sending an email and being like, "Hey, we're making big updates, blah 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 blah." And there was something about like you had to log in and like check a box maybe or something. I don't quite
Yeah.
remember, like to keep your profile active, like to have it sent over to the new version or like
Mhm.
Yeah, because it
anyways.
looks a lot different than what it used to look like.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
That's so weird. Anyway, random aside, just I realized I hadn't. Let me jump back on there. I haven't been in there for a while, just to see what's going on.
And where?
On Bigger City, I haven't been on there in years.
Mhm.
Anywho, um, random aside, tangent as we go. Um, I do think what has also, for me, changed my taste has been Letterkenny community, being a
Mhm.
part of that and doing the things there.
Okay.
Um, weirdly enough, or not weirdly enough, I shouldn't say weirdly. Um, oftentimes, play is not sexual. Sometimes it's about the dynamic and the power exchange and those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So certain images are interesting to me because of what I'm seeing or what I'm um, getting out of it. So um, that has changed in some ways some of the guys that I would be interested in. Um, just a random aside, I was just at IML and got to experience someone who would normally not be my type, but um, I was invited to a room where a guy was essentially blindfolded and bound. Wow, words hard. Not my usual type of guy, but the idea of the scene was that he wouldn't know how many people were in this room that were
Mm-hmm.
engaging with him, were touching him and doing things with him. He had a sir or a dom there that was sort of the you know dungeon master of the space, so that if they were there to make sure everything was legit. But I found myself a guy that I normally wouldn't have been attracted to. I was very attracted to him because of the submission, as it were.
Hmm.
A guy that I probably wouldn't have hit my, trip my trigger if I had saw them in passing,
Right.
but knowing that other aspect of them made them more interesting.
It could have been partly because of the scene, like
Also, that,
what was happening. Uh,
Right.
yeah,
so the scene kind of turned you on, which allowed you to be turned on. Like if you met this guy outside of that scene, would you have the same reaction?
I don't know.
Right.
That's a little bit of the question. Like even if you already knew about the scene. So,
Yeah,
I mean, we don't know. Maybe
yeah,
not. But
maybe.
that's one of the factor that might be part of it is just the scene was hot, and because the scene was hot, your libido was turned on.
Right. That's fair.
I also have learned that I like being bound. That
Yes,
I am mostly on the more of the sub side of things.
yes,
Also, for those people who don't know, subs aren't always bottoms.
that part right there. That
It's
part right
true.
there. It's
I
very
just
fucking
I
true.
just shared something in the past day about a guy who was like wanting a subby top, and honestly I thought of you, Jeff, not like you and him. I just meant like
Right.
because they posted it, because I think you're the first person that I ever heard verbalize that, like kind of self-label and or like use that language. And
Mhm.
I was like, right. um And I think that's another thing that's happened for us over the years is that the language has expanded greatly. And so when we were discovering ourselves and figuring out what we liked or what drew our attention, what we were interested in, we didn't have words for it.
Right.
Like I never in a million years thought in the late 80s into the 90s that I would have been like talking about daddies. Like that wouldn't have been a thing to say because I probably would have been all skeezed out about it because I would have taken it in a very like honest, like common defined, kind of thing. And
Mhm.
now I look at, things posted on media and profiles and it kills me because these like late 20 somethings, early 30s are like claiming the label of daddy. And I'm like, really? And
Well,
and there's a part of me that like I have to check myself and be like, okay, listen, this is their gig. Like that's them making that choice. I would
right.
not necessarily recognize that like
Yeah.
for them based on just some preliminary things. And yet, if I wanted to think about it in terms of age, it is quite possible. Like, and I think that's the thing that gets a little convoluted about that label is people being interested in daddies, like people who have actually had children versus like that kind of personality, that fatherly, nurturing kind of concept. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for the longest time, and this is where my tastes have broadened in this entire time, is um, because I was along the lines of wanting somebody that was older. It didn't necessarily have to be a lot older, but older than I was. Um, so so like Carl, when I moved down to Austin he was 12 years older than I was, I think. But at that time, I was in my early 20s.
mhm.
So, and he was in his 30s. So he was older, but kind of still within that range of not being
Yeah.
extremely older.
Yeah.
And I still
Yeah.
find older men attractive, but especially as I've gotten older, I've been looking at myself, especially considering I've been getting this nice gray beard. Um, Also kind of considering myself a daddy. So getting even more attracted to the younger. So age has never really been a thing for me really. Um it really just is what I find attractive is just what I find attractive. And if they're younger and I find them attractive, great. If they're older, I find them attractive, great. Um so it really kind of doesn't matter their age at that point, but I think I was still when I was younger, about 20 years ago, I was feeling more attracted to the older than I did the younger. So
Mhm.
plus I was 20 years ago, I was awfully close to the age of consent in the United States. So being attracted to somebody younger, well, there was not much room there. I've got plenty
Right.
of room.
Right.
True. And I think that's also a thing too. As we've gotten older, I think we saw in what we were attracted to, we're now seeing in ourselves, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. So it makes sense for us that some guys that are younger than us are now being interested in us. And for me, it's taking because as I said, I'm normally into older guys, but I'm seeing the beauty and benefit of finding younger than me attractive. And because it's sort of um sounds bad, but paying the dues, as it were. Because if it wasn't for the older men in my life when I was younger
Mm,
that helped me,
right.
I wouldn't be where I am. So I should potentially do that to others now. Not that that's happening all the time, but just it gives me a moment of pause when someone younger than me hits me up. Although I will say this much, y'all. Like if you are young, if you're hitting someone up who is older than you, don't immediately go for daddy, because I do not identify as a daddy, not yet anyway.
I'll take all
Um,
your daddies. I am okay with you calling me daddy,
yeah,
just as long as I get to call you
am.
son
Yeah, I am not as
or boy.
much. I think in a scene that we've talked about and agreed on and consented into, then, but to call me it out the gate, no. Because for me, again, daddy is also one of the terms of respect in my community. So I don't always want to be called that. And maybe I'm still holding on to the fact that I want to still be a little younger than I actually am. Like maybe just a little bit.
That's fair. I can understand that.
Yeah.
So Gary, how about you? You haven't answered the question yet.
So yes, men who turned my head when I was like much younger still turn my head now. In that there's a certain aesthetic, there's a certain like there's something about. So it's taken decades for me to like hone in on this. But if you are taller than me, broader shouldered than me, and like built like a linebacker or bigger, I will probably like pay attention to you. Because that was just something that happened within like my like being a younger guy that like really, I don't know, was appealing to me. And so that kind of hasn't changed. I figured out other things along the way, like any guy that has a widow's peak, that is appealing to me. There's just something very specific about it. And I don't seek it out, but every once in a blue moon, I'll be like, why is that guy so attractive? Like, and I'm like, is it his eyes? Is it his beard? Is it his facial hair? Like, is it like his cheek structure or something? And invariably, if I think about it long enough and I'm like, oh, right, widow's peak. Like, it's so uniquely specific.
It is very specific.
That it hits me a certain way that it doesn't with other guys. And that's not to say I don't find other guys like attractive without one. It's just a particular thing that kind of like hits me in a certain way. Yeah, like guys with shorter hair, something that's closer to like a flat top will kind of get my attention. And so, like, it's funny because I was thinking about this as I was putting this together. Like, who were the epitome of things that attracted me? There is one celebrity entertainer that has always gotten my attention. And then when that motherfucker grew a goatee, it was over. And I was like, I don't care if you're married. I don't care if you got kids. And then you got divorced and then you got remarried. And I was mad about that. I was like, you is fine, you is talented, and I'm not asking for forever. I'm just asking for like a little while. And it's ironic.
Flexible.
What I'm saying is, it's the 2020s, baby. Like, you can have an open relationship. We can be polyamorous. Like that's totally a thing, and it's more acceptable now than it ever has been. So, like, and I don't have to tell nobody nothing. Like, I wouldn't even tell the two of you if that was a thing. I'd be like, I can keep it on the DL. Like, I need to tell nobody nothing.
Right.
Take that to my grave.
Here. I'm with you on
that.
Who was it?
Who is it?
Who is it? Have you said it? You didn't say it. I don't know if you said it.
I know David's been like,
with the T.
Who you talking about?
With the T.
They are a musical artist. I was gonna say
the names, dear. Come on.
They've crossed a couple of genres.
It's not Mr. Yearwood, is it?
What's that?
It's not Mr.
Yes.
Yearwood.
That's so funny the way you phrased it.
Oh,
It's
oh
Garth
no, no.
Brooks.
I heard that episode of. Oh wait, don't tell me.
It's Garth Brooks. David seems so confused.
Oh, okay.
He remarried. He divorced his wife, and he married Trisha Yearwood.
Got it.
So he's sometimes referred to as Mr. Yearwood. He was on Kelly Clarkson's talk show the past year, and I was like, "Yep," and still got it.
Mhm.
Like, still a sexy motherfucker. I had a poster of him in my bedroom when I was younger. Yeah, like him in them jeans. That was a problem for me.
Yeah, he's.
And-
There's
and
something
that was
about
probably
him. Oh, I agree with you
Well, that-
wholeheartedly on that. All of that.
That was the beginning of the thick thigh thing for me. That was another thing. Like guys who have like broad shoulders, but like are kind of thick throughout the body. Like that's a whole thing. And what I've realized is like they have a build about them that has like strength.
So you're saying you like stocky dudes?
Yeah, I mean, like that's just kind of a thing that I've always known is like if you are like offense, football / rugby, like that will turn my eye, that will catch my attention, all that kind of jazz. But over time,
Any lineman work.
over time, I have come to realize that yes, I definitely find myself much more attracted now than I was when I was like much younger to men with a lot of like gray and or silver white hair in their facial hair or their like hair on the top of their head. And I think that's just because I've aged. So when I was in my 20s, I didn't want to date anybody in my 20s. I was an absolute jerk about it. Like I kind of created a rule and I was like, you are
Wow.
not mature enough. I do not have time for your shenanigans and your bullshit. And you're like, and all your craziness and your irresponsibility and not having your shit together and like not being able to pay your bills and looking for somebody who like was going to take care of you. So peace out, y'all. That's how I was. Like I really like I was really like my 20s. I always wanted somebody who was going to be at least 30. Like that was just kind of the way I was. I don't think I put that in profiles. I don't think I said that out loud. It was just a thing that I knew. Like it was going to take somebody really goddamn special to have their life together in a way that was going to impress me if they were close to my age, like or just a little older. Someone younger than me was never probably going to be a thing.
Mm.
And then it wasn't until probably my late 30s into my 40s that I found myself being much more comfortable with someone around my age. And now, this past year, these past 8 months,
Oh yeah.
7 months roughly, I have found myself thinking very much more about like where I am now and what is to come of my life, and how there are certain things that I want. And so seeing guys with profiles and stuff who are like, I'm retired or I'm semi-retired or this and that, I'm like, okay, like I see you. Like that's something I wouldn't have thought about before. That's something I wouldn't have paid.
Mm.
But that's not necessarily a quality that attracts me to them. That just happens to be something about them that kind of
Right.
like you said, Jeff, is like icing on the cake. Like, oh, like not only are you attractive, and do I find myself like wanting to be like around you in your space or with you or you know physically intimate. Like there's also other components about you. Like I read a profile just this weekend that I was really taken by. This guy I don't think I'm going to describe anything that'll like describe him specifically, but he was like, hey, I recently got out of a long relationship. Like I'm finding myself, I'm figuring some things out, so on and so forth. I wrote like, it reminded me of like the old days when you read profiles and there was paragraphs, and that doesn't seem to happen as much anymore. I think everybody's just kind of like, you know, stats and
Mhm.
like, you know, just a couple of things like, and they hit it and quit it kind of like in their description. And this was a lot more like, this is what I like to do. This is the stuff I'm kind of interested in. This is sort of what I'm looking for. Like, and I almost sent them a message just to simply say, hey, I really liked your profile, that you took the time to kind of put stuff out there and give people an idea of who you are and what you're interested in.
Speaking of which, speaking of profiles, please put something in it. Don't just leave everything as like, ask me, or I'll tell you later. Just put something in there, even if it's a sentence or two. It doesn't have to be over elaborate or something. Just give me an idea of what you're about. Come on. And at least have a picture or two. It doesn't even have to be a full-on dude. And it doesn't even have to be necessarily your face if you're trying to be a little more discreet or something. That's fine. Just give me something to work off. And for those other people, read profiles for Christ's sakes. People that
Also
put something there, put effort into it. Also, those people who do, TLDRs, please. Just start off with the short summary, and then if you want to expand, just let us be able to read like the first few sentences, and get the gist of it, and then you can be more expansive after. But don't write a novel, please. Right, I do appreciate the charts, like when you do those tests and like the BDSM tests. I think we did at one point in time, where it was like, let me look at the result that I put in one of my profiles here. Hold on.
That might be something to do, because I don't know if we've done that for the
I'm
show.
sure. Oh yeah, I had like 100% rope bunny, 97% brat, 82% submissive, 80% non-monogamous, 77 primal prey, 67 equally a voyeur and exhibitionist, a 59% switch, which seems appropriate, being really close to 50%. 50% vanilla? I thought it was more vanilla than this test gave me for. 48% experimentalist. Yes, Payson.
Neat.
Don't write a novel.
I don't mind a novel. However,
And make sure you have a TLDR.
limit.
But
Well,
okay,
I don't
no,
necessarily need a TL. I don't need a TLDR.
That get me interested, and then maybe I'll read the rest. But
I don't need a TLDR. I'm gonna read, or if nothing else, skim through what you have written down, because normally I can get if I'm interested or not through looking through some of the stuff you write. And if you've written a novel, I will admit I'm probably less likely to engage with it fully. It doesn't mean I won't engage. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's going to take me a while to get through it before I say, oh, let me go talk to this person or not. But I do want some information. I agree with that. I can't go on your stats alone, and I also can't go on just your picture alone. If you want immediate carnal, like, gut reaction to just a picture, fine. Then that's what you're going to get. But if you want like actual interest or someone to engage with you and talk with you and have a conversation with you, then you're going to need to have a little bit more.
and the apps will send you a
What?
woof, will send you a growl, will send you a flirt, will send you an oink, depending on what habit is. We'll send you a quick little thing. If there's like immediate, like, your picture's attractive enough, but
So in the live chat, Payson Harris just said, quote, don't write a novel, end quote. And they wrote, fuck my drag, eh? So the reason why I'm laughing is I'm pretty sure Payson is an author and is writing a book.
Well,
Which is-
no, okay,
which is
no,
why they
no,
always
no.
say-
If you're writing an actual book for purpose of publishing, that's one thing. I'm talking about in a profile. It's not the place where you write a novel. The actual writing a novel goes somewhere else. Also, I only got the don't write a novel. I don't say anything in the chat.
I just think it's funny. I just appreciated that. Duly noted. We'll do a future show. We'll do the BDSM test. Actually, I'm curious. Maybe I'll reach out and see if Tony's available to come on. I'd like his insight on that. Anyways, more to come on that later. That's what he said. But boom. Anyways, so yeah,
we can ask him right now. He was in the chat, in the Telegram chat just a minute ago. Meanwhile, Rugger's setting me up with his friends, who are apparently Dom bottoms.
So Payson says, I've written a couple of novels and just signed an NDA about my most recent one. Ooh, congrats. Also, my profiles are longer than my books. Well, then I guess Jeff will be reading them, but that's okay.
Can you just put like the summary, you know, what the thing that's put on the back of the book?
Give us the book jacket version. Like,
yeah. Give me what's on the jacket, because, you know, sometimes you read that first to determine if you're enticed to read the rest, right? That's all I'm saying.
Right.
So you can write a novel. It's just make sure that there's something there to entice me to actually read it.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah. So, and wrapping up, like, I think my tastes have changed in that, like, I've matured with my age and recognized that, I guess, like, when I was younger, I never would have thought somebody beyond 15 to 20 years ahead of me was of interest. And that probably still kind of holds true in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fudging on that because I'm like, I can always, I'm open to an opportunity. I'm not like gonna shut that down.
Right.
Like, for me, more than ever now, I think personality chemistry is going to be a huge piece. Like,
yeah,
how do we click? How do we get along? What is stuff like? And there is a part of me that has grown concerned that the older I get, the more difficult this will be for me. Like, a part of me is like, I will probably be much more comfortable in my skin, which is better for me and better for a future relationship. But then at the same time, I'm like, I've been alone for so long that I could find it being very challenging to, like, want to give part of my life to be with another person in some capacity, because I'm so used to having, like, my own time be mine and I do whatever I want with it. So
yeah.
I think that is fair in that way. I mean, there are definitely some things trope wise from the media of our youth that still, like, grab my attention now. Like, a man in boots will always start to get my attention. A man in full leather will probably get my attention. If he's wearing it in the middle of the summer, I'm gonna be like, God damn, he's probably roasting. But
Okay.
I'm just
Side
saying.
note, full shade, full tea. Yesterday was Pride here in Cincinnati. It was 90-something degrees outside, and one of the guys, if you saw my picture on Facebook, he wasn't in full leather. I mean, he had sleeves cut off, but leather pants and a leather, like, shirt type thing, and boots. No, sir. No. No. How? Like,
Well, if you're smart and you've learned something from the cosplay / furry community, you will have put, like, cool water packs into your like leather, like underneath your leather somehow, with an extra barrier to not damage it, to keep you cool in the hot weather. But that's going above and beyond, and that's a lot of, like, investment.
Yeah.
On top of the cow. So yeah. That is. Anyways,
he might like being all sweaty and musky.
I mean, maybe, but
right.
That's
There's also that.
But there's still, like, you. It was too hot for that
There's-
shit. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of things that are like, when it comes to the men, especially when you're being attracted to a variety, is there's always the plus point. the additional things that turn you on that might counteract something that you wouldn't normally, I'm going to put in quotes, count as being attractive. Like you were talking about the widow's peak, the boots, and leather, that sort of thing. Me, it's pretty much if they're bald. If they're bald belly and they've got a puppy with them, meaning the actual dog puppy,
Right.
and maybe some food. I mean, you're starting to get to my heart right there, because I always say the way to my heart is through food and puppies.
Right. And I will say this, like some things have been pretty much a constant, like things that appeal to me as an interest, if they appeal to you, that like also like increases the attractiveness. Liking to travel, being interested in food, being interested in entertainment, being a little bit of an intellectual thinker, like knowing and discovering over the past couple years about like being Demi, I've figured out like I got to be stimulated. Like there has to be something synaptically happening that I feel compelled to be interested. And that's one of the things I've really started to recognize of late is like I go on the apps and stuff and like, oh, and that's another thing that has not changed about me. I'm still a voyeur. Like I'm just gonna own it. Like, and I think like that's a big deal for me in that, you know, seeing and knowing people that are doing things or whatever is very, you know, kind of titillating or interesting or intriguing. But like to be involved and to actually do it, I don't know. Like, and so that's another thing about, you know, the interest in guys is like I I don't really get attracted to guys or have an interest, never have, in people who are show offs. Because to me, that like gets too borderline with like a pompous, like self-absorbed kind of nature. Like that has always been a turnoff, still is a turnoff to this day. And that's something I had to kind of work through a little bit and discover about like the BDSM and kink communities is that not all doms are dickheads. Like that was an outside perspective that I had, was that, you know, all doms were just douchebags because they, you know, were full of themselves because they were the top or whatever.
Oh,
And I had to like kind of learn like, no, like some of them it is a personification, some of them it's kind of role play in a character way, and that isn't necessarily it. And it took me meeting some tops who are I don't know if this is the right term, soft doms,
yeah,
like
that's right. That's the term.
like that are not really like harsh
Yeah.
or hard, I guess. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that's very intriguing to me.
Yeah,
In
you
that
need
essence. So
the you need to match the intensity of what your partner is enjoying. Because if you're being too intense, that's going to be a turnoff.
well, and hopefully, like I had to learn, you know, from being around kink and leather folk, you know, and that like there needs to be communication, and hopefully you've discussed this stuff ahead of time so you know what
Right.
both parties are looking for and are interested in to get out of it. So you know that there's probably a line somewhere, and you figured out like how to address when you approach that line so you don't go over it, like, and it doesn't turn the scene sour. Um,
Mhm.
for folks that are involved in that way. Also, if people are observing, like the respect of that. There was just a lot that I ended up learning when I was like in my 30s that I'm very, very grateful for. And I think made good impressions on me. And so that's stuff that I carry forward now that I wouldn't have had in my 20s by any means. Like even if it was like possibly, you know, if I saw, it's funny because when I was in my 20s, I thought biker men were pretty hot. Like, but what I realized is like I was buying into the trope and the model and the idea of like this very butch, like, you know, muscly, bearded, tatted, like
Yeah.
cigar smoking. Yes, I know some of you out there are liking this. You know, kind of personification. And since then, I've met some bikers, and some of them are the biggest goddamn teddy bears, like just so soft and not like
Yeah.
menacing. They just kind of look that way. Um,
I think that's
and
more the
and
norm.
Well, I mean, in a way that like you meet them and you get to talk to them and you're like, oh man, you're not anything like that.
Fantasy versus reality.
That part, right? Right. So, yeah, I think some of those things have changed, but I know definitively, like I was saying about some of the tropes, like once in a blue moon, I will see somebody like wear throwback clothes. So like someone will wear the short shorts, the gym short shorts with the split on the side from like back in the like 80s. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Um, it just takes that and a tank top and a whistle and a ball cap and like some calf high white socks and some sneakers, and you are totally giving coach gym teacher vibes. And that was the thing.
For those who don't know, the split that we're referring to is only like 1 or 2 inches. It's not like
it's
all the way up the side.
Although there are some like that out there, but that's for
that's a
like,
different that's for a different class.
That's when you're
much different place.
That's when you're actually fucking like that.
I was gonna say that's Google boy territory. Like that's a different thing. Yeah. No, but I mean, so there are some things that like you see that every now and then you're kind of like, oh, all right, that's the thing. Like it's still. So I think that kind of like all of us were saying like yes, some of it from then still is relevant now, but we've also adapted with time and just like our age and our place in it in that case.
I remember lusting over my ninth grade, 9th or 10th, maybe it was 10th grade, social studies teacher. He was one of the football coaches. Oh, the stories I wrote.
My first male teacher crush was elementary school gym teacher, like 5th, 6th grade. He was probably genetically Swedish, like thick muscle build, had the Magnum PI thick stash, but he was like sandy blonde, and tanned really well, and had crystal blue eyes. Like there was just something about him that was a thing, which also made like that whole time of my life, like with gym class, very awkward. Yeah. And so for sure, like there's certain things of that caliber and that style that are still a thing now. So yeah, and I find it interesting because there's also a part of me that wonders, like, will today's younger generation go through the same thing that we will? Like, will they, as they age, like have these like kind of nostalgia callbacks and interest and carry them forward, or will they also kind of change with time? I know for a long time when I was in my 30s and I would hear like younger individuals who were like 20 or 18 or 19, and they'd be like, "And it's only man hit on me." And I would always be like, "You best shut up, because one day you're going to be that old man." So
that part,
you watch yourself. Fact, very much, David. It's fact. So, I knew then, like, I always had a respect for my elders. Like, I'm an only child. I was around adults so much, like, throughout my youth, that was not a surprise to me that I acclimated in that direction naturally.
Right.
So that was just kind of a thing for me that kind of was the case. And I think that also parlayed into like why I said, like, when I was in my 20s, I was like, I don't want nobody around my age. I was like, you are all idiots. Like, I just could not tolerate hardly anybody kind of had their shit together and had their life together. And anybody that did, I was sort of annoyed with, in the way that I felt like they were like, they carried themselves above. So like while they had their life together, they just felt like they couldn't be bothered.
Shit didn't stink.
Right. And that really kind of bothered me, because I was like, oh, okay, so you've got your life all figured out and you got your shit together, but like you're still kind of a douchebag. So there's that. There's that. All right.
I will accept anyone who's young, dumb, full of cum. Almost.
I haven't reached that stage.
Yeah, I haven't either. Trust me, I was at IML. There were so many opportunities Like, no, I'm good. Thanks.
Right now, I am itching.
Jeff, we should probably find you a free clinic nearby. That checked out.
Not that type of itch.
Not that kind of itch.
Okay. Just saying.
I just need to.
Yeah.
Really?
Huh?
In the middle of our podcast?
What?
I just looked at the Telegram chat.
Oh. I was like, really?
Well, it all started. Well, first off, Cubs had after you had put "Who's hungry for menses," and he goes, "Menses, not Cubses."
Oh.
And then we were having we were talking something about like that Dom tops exist or sub tops exist. And I remember a meme in my gamer Discord where somebody had put, "Are you really about him, or are you overwhelmed by having to make 1,000 choices every day in an infinitely complex society where you can't afford to survive, much less thrive, and you no longer want to make decisions and simply want to be told what to do?" And I'm like, would they? I don't entirely agree with that. I'm like, well, that's because sometimes thoughts are kind of like that too. So
yeah.
And then I also replied to Cubs saying, "Well, Cubs is his menses, so yes."
Right.
Rugger mentioned that, well, if that were true, there would be as many subtops as there are sub bottoms, but some of my friends are dom bottoms, and their attempts to find subtops are difficult. I just pointed out them a sub versus top, and he said he'll send his friends this way, and then he's extract Damon with a gif of Beverly Crusher.
Yeah. I caught up on that. All right. So anything else as we wrap up?
Nope. I think I'm good. I think we're good. Single gay male, currently looking for sexual partners.
Yes. Your taste may change, your taste may differ depending on what you're doing as you grow, as you change. It's just the way it is. I mean, taste buds, even your like taste in foods change over time. So
True.
Yeah.
Things I didn't like when I was younger that I grew to like. I still don't like seafood.
Yes. No Red Lobster for you.
No Red Lobster for a bunch of people. They closed a whole bunch of stores because they're filing bankruptcy.
Yeah, I was just going to get to that. But
I'll take some of their cheddar bay biscuits. Well, those sound delicious.
you can make them at home. They have a mix and everything.
I don't want to work. I want to work.
All right.
I was just saying what it was there. That's all I was saying.
That's for post show.
That's being the thing.
Anyways, what are your tapes and menses? Have they changed over time? Are you a youngin, and are you agreeing with the fact that we're changing things? That your tastes may change as you grow older. You'll accept more people. You will understand. As I said, even I have grown in that. But if anything, consent is my foreplay. Let us know about your taste in what turns you on. You can do that in plenty of ways. You can bob over to our website, cubsoutloud.com, shoot us an email at cubsoutloud@gmail.com. Leave us a voicemail section or otherwise at 361-COL-TALK, or comment to us on one of our social media outlets at Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Cubs Out Loud. The appropriate place for the URL. You can join our top Unfrost chat, where currently there is a gif of Beverly Crusher wagging his dick.
That's at bit.ly/telegram-col. You can find out when we're planning on recording these shows, but through our Google Calendar at bit.ly/calendar-col. You can get various accoutrements, such as just a logo shirt. You can get a Sloppy Bottom 23 shirt. We haven't mentioned that one in a long time. Gary's wearing it. I've got a Consent is my foreplay shirt on. We got those in many different styles. We've also got plenty of other accoutrements. One thing that I've been using more often than before, a nice handy towel. We have an entire towel set available too, so just saying. Mugs, etc. We got a whole bunch of that over on Zazzle, zazzle.com/cutsoutloud. Some of those designs, such as the Consent is my foreplay design, was designed by Smashy. You can find more of his work at tpublic.com/Smashy the Bear. Please support our designer. He deserves it. You can also become a patron at patreon.com/cubsoutloud and get the free post-show and pre-show if you're not watching it live. You can also send us a donation at paypal.me/cubsoutloud. You can also please rate us and review us over on the podcasting platforms of your choice, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and Amazon Audible, I think. You can find me anywhere on the internet as Boxset, Box Puppy, Box Cut, Box something or other. I'm probably listing myself as Want Sex Now. Damn.
Oh, God. Wow. If you wish to get in touch with me, you can find me as TheaterCub79. That's TheaterCub79 on most related sites or on Facebook. Or you can find me as Pup_Umber on Twitter or Pup_Umber79 on Blue Sky. Those are not safe for work. For the safe for work stuff, you can find me as DMAGamer79 on TikTok or Twitter. Gary?
If you would like to get in touch with me, you can pretty much find me anywhere online as GareBear73.
And with that, Daddy's in heat.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good one, y'all.
Bye.